Joe Brolly says here that this is the worst thing to happen to Derry since the plantation. That is quite a statement from Joe Brolly. Of course, Joe Brolly, a legend in many eyes in terms of Derry GAA, obviously a very outspoken figure when it comes to the world of the GAA. We know that from his time in RTE, and we know very well that he certainly loves to have an opinion nowadays on Twitter, and he can certainly come out with some things that can be quite outlandish and quite controversial. And this is his take on the news that Mickey Harte has become the Derry senior football manager. And we know that it's certainly, I suppose, a move that's caused a lot of divide amongst GAA fans. Obviously, Tyrone fans furious with this opinion. We'll be going through what some Tyrone fans have had to say about this. A lot of Derry fans as well, including obviously Joe Brolly, who would be obviously now a fan of the Derry senior footballers. You know, he can't believe that this has happened. You know, in many ways, it's the enemy that is coming to Derry GAA. Now, if he goes and wins the All-Ireland and he wins them the All-Ireland Senior Football Championship, I doubt on that day they'll still look at him as the enemy. But obviously right now, for a lot of Derry fans, and I'm not saying all Derry fans, I think some Derry fans are very happy with the news. And I've actually seen probably more Derry fans happy with it than not happy with it. But it's a strange one. It's a weird one. I think even for myself as a Dublin fan, it'd be like Jack O'Connor coming to Dublin. It'd be a bit like James Horan coming to Dublin, Stephen Rochford. It's a bit of a bizarre one. Do you know what I mean? It's a bit of a strange one. And it's something that's going to take getting used to. But yeah, we're here anyway to look at all the tweets, all the reaction, all the discussion from the news that Mickey Harte has become the Derry senior football manager. And we're going to be looking at what fans have had to say, pundits, players, ex-pros, absolutely everybody really in the world of the GAA. And we're going to be seeing what they've had to say about the news that Mickey Harte has become the Derry senior football manager. Because, look, it's news that I think has taken everybody by storm. I made a video on it yesterday discussing it in more detail if people want to go and check that out. But it's something that nobody saw coming. I mean, with the Jim McGuinness news to Donegal, we got word of it a couple of days before. But with this, it's just happened. You know, it's come out of absolutely nowhere. And it definitely has taken us all by surprise. And Joe Brolly also said, what in the name of fuck? Definitely quite a surprise from a Joe Brolly perspective. And it's interesting because when you listen to Joe Brolly, I've listened to him on a few different podcasts, even in the build-up to the All-Ireland final, the All-Ireland semi-finals. He's even openly said before that he actually doesn't really rate this Derry team quite that high. Like he's called Conor Glass an average footballer on numerous occasions. He said that they've been overachieving. He said that they're nowhere near the levels. And in some ways, it almost feels like he's trying to play down this Derry side in case they do win an All-Ireland and essentially match what he achieved when he was in charge of Derry. You know, it's a bit of a strange one, the way he has been quite critical of Derry through the years. And maybe it is because of the fact that he is a Derry man, and sometimes you can be a little bit more critical of your own team at the best of times. And apparently, though, does feel like he doesn't want the shine and the attention to go towards this Derry crop rather than his own crop. Because if this Derry team win the All-Ireland, in my opinion, they then eclipse the side in the 90s. Because for me, it's harder to win an All-Ireland now. And I also think the Ulster titles back it up as well. And where Derry have come from, in my opinion, it makes it a bigger achievement. But look, that's obviously my opinion. I'm sure some people will disagree on that. But yeah, absolutely crazy stuff there from crazy take in many ways from Joe Brolly. And of course, it was announced on Monday evening, and it was Louth GAA themselves who actually went and announced it. Breaking: Mickey Harte and Gavin Devlin will be standing down from their roles with Louth GAA with immediate effect and taking over with Derry senior footballers. I don't think they were necessarily meant to let us know they were going to Derry. You know, it's crazy. I'm recording this on Tuesday evening, and it still hasn't actually been officially announced by Derry GAA that he will be the new manager. But Peter Fitzpatrick has openly spoke about it on the radio. Samuel Roy has spoke about it on Off the Ball earlier today as well. So it is a little bit strange that everybody's speaking about it, but Derry still haven't actually officially confirmed it. But look, it's going to be confirmed. It's just a matter of obviously letting the public know. It's a pretty much done deal. You know, they wouldn't have left Louth obviously without coming to Derry. And I think we know now. And by the time this video is out, I would be pretty certain that it has been officially confirmed. Cahir O'Kane says more details on the shock news that Mickey Harte will be the new Derry manager understood that the Louth players were completely blindsided by it this evening. News delivered by Chairman Peter Fitzpatrick. Gavin Devlin's involvement is huge for Derry. And yeah, look, I'd say it certainly did take the Louth lads by surprise. And I was listening to Sam Mulroy on Off the Ball earlier today, and he was even saying that, they thought when they were going to the meeting that it was going to be just, a pre-season chat. They're going to be talking about tactics going into Division 2 for the new season, maybe just a bit of a catch-up to see how everybody's getting on in club championships, how our injuries looking, etc. But in the end, it was actually, an announcement that they'll both be leaving. And it's a huge blow to Louth, a huge, huge blow to Louth football, in my opinion, because, you look at the work he done with Louth over the last couple of seasons. You look at where he took them. The fact that they now are without that legendary manager, Mickey Harte, Louth could possibly regress over the next couple of years. I do think there are good managers out there. I think there are good managers available. And I think for Peter Fitzpatrick, he done a great job getting Mickey Harte to Louth in the first place. And he's going to have to channel a bit more of that to get the next manager in. It's going to be interesting to see who they actually go for. You'd wonder, could Peter Fitzpatrick pull off another master stroke and get someone like Malachy O'Rourke down to Louth? Enda McGinley, I don't think would be a bad option necessarily. I think he'd be very much able to carry on that sort of Tyrone-esque trend of managers going down there. But look, we'll see what happens. There's going to be speculation, obviously, over the next couple of weeks. Make no mistake about that. And speaking of Peter Fitzpatrick, who was on the radio earlier today, and he said Mickey Harte was very upfront with me. He has a 3-year term with Derry and wants to win another All-Ireland before he retires. Yeah, look, and again, it boils down to what I said yesterday, and I think a lot of other fans will very much have this opinion, is that I think he's taken Louth as far as he can. He's not going to win an All-Ireland with Louth. Let's be perfectly honest. That's just not going to happen. Even getting them to the semi-finals, final, quarter-finals, or winning a provincial title, to an outsider looking in, looks impossible. And it would be, if he did go on to do that, if he had gone on to do that, it would have been one of the greatest stories in the history of Gaelic Games. But he's gone to Derry. Look, and he's looked at it. Derry have come out. They've made him an offer, and he said, you know what? I want to go there and win an All-Ireland. And from his point of view, you can perfectly understand it. Tyrone fans are obviously not happy about this. Some Derry fans are a little bit concerned about it as well. And look, there's huge pressure on Mickey Harte because, as I said before, you don't go to Derry to not win an All-Ireland. So, there's huge amounts of pressure on Mickey Harte. And speaking of the Tyrone side of view, or the Tyrone opinion following this appointment, Owen Mulligan, of course, ex-Tyrone legend by all stretches. Of course, he's had his own beef with Mickey Harte through the years. He's been very open about that on different interviews and everything else. And this is his response to the news. So he says, only back speaking to the CUNT, and he goes and does that. There you go. He was also, I seen another tweet as well where he said, it's basically like going from Celtic to Rangers, or I'll be joining them down at Ibrox. I think it's something along them lines is what he said. So yeah, look, I mean, a lot of ex-Tyrone legends would be very upset by this as well, and they'd be very concerned about it. You'd imagine what Fergal Logan and Brian Dooher are thinking about this as well, knowing that they'll have to come up against them potentially next season. And I think a lot of ex-Tyrone footballers, Sean Kavanagh, these lads who all work in the media, it's going to be very interesting to see their opinion and their take on it when that does come around. But yeah, you can understand it from a Tyrone perspective why they are so upset. And unofficial Tyrone says here, at the end of Mickey Harte's tenure, the people of Tyrone were divided about whether to freshen things up with new management. Would be surprised to see many of us now happy to see him throw his lot in with Derry. And I think, look, I think it was right in many ways for Tyrone to have moved Mickey Harte on. I think when you looked at Mickey Harte in charge of Tyrone and you looked at how things were going, yes, he got them to the All-Ireland final in 2018, and that was a big achievement. But you could also argue that Mayo and Kerry were completely off at that year in comparison to previous years. But I do think, when you looked at 2019 and 2020, they weren't progressing, and they had a very good side. They had a very good team. They went on to win the All-Ireland the season later. So it was clear to see that there was a real team within Tyrone. And I even remember making a video not long after Mickey Hart had left Tyrone. And I think, I made it late in 2020 saying why they could win the All-Ireland this season later was because of the talent and players that they had available to them. So I think it probably was the right decision to move him on. But when you look at how stale things have been for Tyrone over the last 2 seasons, and now Mickey Hart going to their big rivals, it's just, look, it's going to give the Tyrone lads a kick at the same time, and we all know what Tyrone are like when they get a bit of motivation behind them and they get the fire in their belly and everything else. They'll want to prove, Mickey Hart and Derry wrong, and they'll want to show that, look, they're they're coming for Derry, So yeah, it's next year Derry versus Tyrone, if it happens, oh my goodness me, that could be absolutely incredible, couldn't it? And Thomas Niblick says, could you honestly imagine if Derry get Tyrone in the championship next year? That is absolute fireworks, absolute fireworks. How long before someone gets sent off? That's what I'm thinking. How long before someone gets sent off? But look, it mightn't actually be the greatest spectacle of a game, to be fair. But I think, it would be so intriguing to watch that and so intriguing to see what happens. And you're always waiting for the potential moment that Mickey Hart was going to come up against his former county. It didn't happen while he was in charge of Louth. There was a couple of moments where it looked like maybe it could happen, but obviously with the fact that Louth were in Leinster, they were playing at a much lower division in the National Football League, meant it was going to be very unlikely, but now it's very, very possible. And it's not just possible, it's probable. Like it's going to happen. It's definitely going to happen. If not next year, the year after. And they're going to face each other in Division 1 of the league as well. So when the fixture list comes out, you'll be looking for those fixtures straight away. And you're thinking, Derry, Tyrone, where's that game going to be played? Because it's going to be fierce. It's going to be fierce. And wow, could you even imagine Derry, Tyrone, and an Ulster final? Cahar O'Kane also says, on this day 30 years ago, Derry won their only All-Ireland. Then they sacked Eamon Coleman and that team was never maximised. The shock appointment of Mickey Hart and crucially Gavin Devlin could prevent another Derry team being lost. And yeah, look, it's a very, very good point. I wasn't around obviously back then in the mid 90s, so I can't really relate to whether Derry did capitalise on the team that they had or whatever. But it certainly goes without saying. Look, since that All-Ireland win, over time, they just gradually got worse and worse and worse. And they eventually plummeted and hit rock bottom and, eventually found themselves in Division 4 just a couple of years ago. But they've had a very, very good core group of players within their team right now. The underage structures are very, very good. They've a lot of good players coming through. There is a golden era within this Derry side. And we look down through history, the only other time you could say there was a golden era for Derry was in the 90s. And did they fully capitalise on it back then? Obviously, as we're seeing here, perhaps they didn't, because they didn't win more than one All-Ireland when maybe they should have. Maybe they should have. They were the top dogs in Ulster that season. You would also argue there was Ulster was very competitive back then. Down, Donegal were winning Ulsters and All-Irelands. Tyrone obviously got to the final themselves in 95. So it was very competitive and very tough for Derry back then. There was no backdoor, for example. But I do think they need to capitalise on the players that they've had. And look, they've gone with Mickey Hart. They've brought him in. It's a big statement. And they'll be gunning for the All-Ireland. That's the aim. That's the objective. Forget Ulster. Don't get me wrong. They'll want to win that. They'll want to win that trophy, I'm sure, again and make it 3 in a row. But the All-Ireland is now the priority for this Derry team. Ref says, Derry set to announce the new Louth manager next week. I look forward to that. Because, very rare, isn't it? You see counties announcing other counties' managers. A little bit of a funny one. And as I was saying yesterday, I think Louth were just quite annoyed, quite upset. And I think they said, we're gonna break the news, so at least we'll get the credit for it. But there we go. Conan Doherty says, every single time Mickey Hart takes a new senior inter-county job, either the team he joins or the team he left wins the next All-Ireland. So there you go. Put your money on either Louth or Derry to win the All-Ireland next season. I think it goes without saying Louth will not be winning the All-Ireland, but Derry have a serious chance. They have a serious chance, in fairness. Conor McKenna says here, no manager has in football or hurling has ever won an All-Ireland inter-county senior championship with different counties. Could Mickey Harte become the first manager to do so? Yeah, it's a fair question. And Patrick Sharkey was also saying here, surely if Mickey Harte gets a Sam Maguire Cup with Derry senior footballers, he will be considered the greatest Gaelic football manager of all time. He took a county with 0 All-Ireland titles to 3 and certainly deserves credit for their 2021 All-Ireland win too. Look, I think if he does go and win that All-Ireland, if he does do it with Derry, I think there is an argument then to consider him the greatest manager of all time. I think when you're looking at the greatest managers of all time, you're looking at the likes of Mick O'Dwyer, you're looking at your Jim Gavins, you're looking at Sean Boylan of Meath, obviously, as well. You're looking at these absolute greats and legends who've obviously been there and done it for their county. Pat Gilroy deserves somewhat to be in the conversation for what he done with Dublin as well, in my opinion, although not in the same regard as the other managers. But if Mickey Harte goes and does it with Derry, considering what he done with Louth as well, the level he was able to take them up in a couple of seasons, getting them to a Leinster final, I think there is an argument. But look, he has to go and do it first, and context will mean everything. How does he do it? What teams does he beat along the way, and everything else? But yeah, look, I think if he can go and do it, he definitely cements himself as one of the best, if not the. Look, I think he's one of the best already. He is one of the best already. There's no doubt about it. And you could make an argument for him being the greatest manager already. But I think if he goes and does it, I think maybe definitively you could put him at number one. I think to go and win Tyrone, their first 3 All-Irelands that they've ever won, and then go and win Derry's first All-Ireland in 30 plus years, I think it puts him in the conversation. It really, really does. Or it puts him top of the conversation. Saffron Sports says Mickey Harte's Derry versus Jim McGuinness Donegal in the Ulster Championship this year. Definitely one to be missed. It might be a little bit low scoring, maybe 5 points at halftime each or something of that nature. But again, there's going to be so many battles and wars in the Ulster Championship this year when you think about it. You're going to have Jim McGuinness going up against Mickey Harte potentially. That could be a possibility. At some stage, Jim McGuinness going up against Tyrone. Where does Kieran McGeeney's Armagh fit into this? There's going to be some battles. There's going to be some battles in the Ulster Championship next season. And really, really excited for it. Sean McCaldrick says, though not the same scale as Mickey Harte switched to Derry, the appointment of ex-cabin boss Mickey Graham as Andy Moran's second in command in Leitrim is a fascinating appointment as well. Yeah, that probably went hugely under the radar on Monday evening, with the fact that obviously the Mickey Harte news, very much was the center of everyone's attention. But it is a fascinating one. It's an interesting one. I would have thought Mickey Graham would have went somewhere to be a manager himself and be the number one. I do think that I think it was already, the whole thing was already done with Leitrim before the whole scenario developed with Mickey Harte going to Derry. But I do think, had Louth have maybe come calling before Leitrim did, maybe, just maybe, Mickey Graham would have went to Louth. And I think that would have been a fantastic appointment from a Louth perspective. But yeah, look, him going in with Leitrim is huge. Andy Moran struggled there last season. He needs someone to come in with a bit of experience, and no better man than Mickey Graham, who's been managing at inter-county level for a number of years now. And, it's not that far of a commute. He's obviously managed in Division 4 in the past as well with Cavan. So it's a fantastic appointment, and it certainly puts Leitrim in the running as one of the contenders. I think they were one of the contenders anyway, but I think they're possibly even favourites, maybe you could say, for Division 4 now next season. But it's an interesting one. Who's going to be the next Louth manager as well? That's going to be very interesting to see over the next couple of weeks. And let me know your thoughts, your opinions in the comments down below. As I would have said yesterday, I think Mickey Harte will be successful with this Derry side. I think he will win an All-Ireland. I think when you look at the core group of Derry players that they have to them right now, the young players that are coming through, the fact that Dublin are, for me, slowing down, there's no doubt about it. There will be retirements over the next few seasons. And, Kerry will be there. But look, it only takes one game. And I think Derry have proven they have what it takes to beat a team like Kerry and anyone in the country, in my opinion. And I think it's a 3-year term for him and Gavin Devlin. I'm confident they win an All-Ireland in that time. I very, very much am. But let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. My name is Aaron. Speak to you all soon.